please hit that subscribe button.
Hey everybody.
Better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live.
Hey everybody. So today, as our off-season recap videos roll along, we will be looking at the San Jose Sharks. Now, the San Jose Sharks have had a relatively quiet off-season so far, but this is a big year coming up for them after such a disappointing season last year. So San Jose is going to be a fun team to look at and a fun team to watch heading into next season. Now before we begin, I just ask that you please hit that subscribe button if you're new. Give this video a thumbs up if you haven't yet. Both of those things help out so much and are much appreciated. But let's get into it here. Looking at the additions and subtractions from the offseason so far with San Jose. It hasn't been a whole lot. I think their biggest addition to this point is certainly goaltender Devan Dubnyk coming over from the Minnesota Wild. Ryan Donato also coming over from the Wild, a young scoring winger who looks to fit into the middle of that lineup somewhere. Patrick Marlow also returns after being traded to Pittsburgh last season. He'll be back for another season in San Jose. And Matt Nieto returns as well, a good bottom six type guy, defensive-minded forward who returns to San Jose after a few years away with Colorado. And as far as subtractions go, there haven't been a whole lot, mostly depth pieces, but Joe Thornton is obviously the big one. Thornton signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Aaron Dell, backup goaltender, obviously replaced by Dubnyk. Now also with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Melker Karlsson was a free agent and has not been re-signed. I don't think will be re-signed. And Tim Heed left as well. Depth defenseman. And there were some other depth guys as well. But none of the main core pieces of San Jose left this past offseason. So again, it's been a fairly quiet offseason. But this is a big year coming up for the San Jose Sharks. And for more on the Sharks, I want to pass this off to my friend and fellow YouTuber, Nick from Twisted Wrister Hockey. He has a great channel over there, so please be sure to check it out. It will be linked in the description. He's a Sharks fan. He knows a ton about San Jose Sharks and just everything going on with that team. So, Nick, take it away.
Hey there, everyone. My name is Nick, and my channel is Twisted Wrister Hockey. I invite you to go check it out if you're into hockey history, hockey culture, Jersey talk, and of course, my hometown team, the San Jose Sharks. Thanks so much for having me here on the channel, John. Let's get that guy to over 5K subs. I think that can happen pretty darn soon with the way that you've been cranking out videos and live streaming, so good job, John. Anyway, the Sharks in the offseason, they named Bob Boughner their head coach for full-time. He had coached about half of last season. The team wasn't doing so well. I mean, just about everything that could possibly go wrong for that team ended up happening. You know, you had sharp declines in productivity for players like Karlsson, Hurdle, Couture. These guys got injured as well, so that didn't exactly bode well. A couple players got traded away, Brendan Dillon, Patrick Marlow, who actually came back. But the Sharks just, they've rebounded very well in the past from bad seasons. You look at 2003, missed the playoffs. The next season, they went to the conference finals. You look at 2015, after the reverse sweep to the LA Kings, they had missed the playoffs in 2015. The next year, they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. So this team could maybe turn things around or at least be more competitive on a game-by-game basis. But when you look at their numbers, things were bad at both ends of the ice right there. So Boughner comes in. The team played better defensively. Goaltending got better as well, as Yevgeny Nabokov, Sharks legend, was named the team's goaltending coach. So you look at Martin Jones's numbers, they got better as the season went by, but even so, he still just hasn't been the same for the past couple of years. So hopefully Nabokov will help with that, as will the acquisition of Devan Dubnyk to definitely spur Jones to return to the top of his game. A lot of people are criticizing Dubnyk for this past season. It was just an anomaly. If I look at things, the drop-off was just immense. I think that Dubnyk still has a couple of good seasons left in him. If you look at the previous 4 seasons on average with the Minnesota Wild, 2.41 goals against, .918 save percentage, a goal saved above average of over 10 each year on average, 17 combined shutouts. So he's still a very good goaltender in my opinion. It was just an anomaly last year. So I personally am a little optimistic with regards to goaltending. Also from the Minnesota Wild, we got Ryan Donato. So Donato's going to probably have to play on the top 6 because unfortunately we're pretty weak at wing. You look at Timo Meier, of course, Evander Kane, and Kevin LeBanc. But after that, we really don't have any bona fide player at the wing position, especially nobody who can score with a right-handed shot. So we're going to be looking to fill that void eventually with a guy like Ozzy Weisblatt, who we drafted from the Prince Albert Raiders. So we've got Donato potentially in the top 6. He scored 14 goals with the Wild last year. Didn't even play 11 minutes of ice time a game. So this guy was playing bottom 6 minutes and still was fairly productive. So you put him up there with a guy like Logan Couture, or you have Tomas Hertl centering him. Maybe things will get better. But speaking of centers, we're still pretty darn weak when it comes to that position. So Joe Thornton has left for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I couldn't be happier for him to go somewhere else in that, he can play for his home province and play with some guys like Jason Spezza and mentor guys like Mitch Marner. So I'm looking forward to seeing Jumbo with the Leafs. But nonetheless, with the Sharks, it's really a crapshoot regarding who's going to fill not only the 4th line center, but also the 3rd line center. So you have Antti Suomela, you have Joel Shelman, you have Maxim Latunov, who led the Barracuda in scoring last season. My light just went out. But really, none of these guys are bona fide NHL players necessarily. Suomela has been kind of a pet project for the past couple of years. Shelman, I thought, was one of the best young guns that we had last year. But even so, I think that Doug Wilson is maybe perhaps trusting that a couple of these bottom 6 or fringe NHL players are going to have more impact this next season than they might. That was kind of the way that we were looking at our 4th line last year as well. We also continue to have Stefan Nason in our bottom 6. He's here for another year. He scored 6 goals in 34 games last season and was certainly a fan favorite, was a very hard-nosed, high-energy player on the bottom 6. So we definitely like that acquisition in general, as we do the acquisition of Matt Nieto. So Matt Nieto returns to the Sharks. Great defensive forward, just lots of opportunities have been denied by having Nieto on the ice there for the other team. So I like having Nieto return, Long Beach native right there. And of course, Patrick Marlow returns to the team as well. He's there for mentorship. He's there for some depth scoring. He had 10 goals with the Sharks before being shipped off to Pittsburgh. So not exactly the most attractive of lineups. But again, if you look at the potential for guys like Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, and then you especially look at some of the forwards, right? Logan Couture, Tomas Hertl, Timo Meier. Could these guys kind of return to form like they did in 2018-19? Can they be somewhere in that range? Can Timo Meier be a 30-goal scorer? Can Logan Couture stay healthy? Can Tomas Hertl return to 70-plus points in the prime of his career? And I think the answer is yes. I don't necessarily expect this from every single player on the Sharks, but I think you're going to see overall a better performance from that team offensively. Defensively, I don't know, man. We're still kind of scratching our heads with the defensive play from guys like Karlsson and Burns, but they force turnovers, so you can look at it that way as well. But anyway, my outlook on the Sharks going into this next season is that they'll remain a competitive club. They will definitely return to some of the prime performances of guys like Hertl and potentially Couture, hopefully Meier. But overall, you still look at teams like the Vancouver Canucks, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Calgary Flames even. The Edmonton Oilers played pretty well last season too. So I think it's going to be very hard for the Sharks to climb the ranks. I think they can get out of the basement, but I don't necessarily see them as a playoff team. They could be somewhere hovering around, I would think, maybe 80 points next year. But anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. John, thank you so much for having me on this channel here. And I'll be putting out more San Jose Sharks coverage on my channel, especially as we celebrate the 30th anniversary. So back to you, John.
Thank you, Nick, so much for coming on the channel. Really, really appreciate it. And it would mean a lot if you guys could show him some support. His link to his channel will be down in the description as always. Give him a sub. He does some great content over there at Twisted Wrister Hockey. And there's not much left for me to say. I think Nick covered it very, very well. The two things that really stood out to me that Nick was talking about that I want to touch on are the goaltending and the star players, the top players for the Sharks needing to be better. Devan Dubnyk had a horrible season last year, a horrible season. It's going to be really big for San Jose if Dubnyk can get back on track. Is that one bad season an anomaly like Nick was talking about, or is it a sign of decline for Devin Dubnyk? That is going to be a big question this season that's going to get answered. If Dubnyk can get back on track and be that all-star goalie that he was a few years ago, then that could be a sneaky good addition for the San Jose Sharks to help fill that goaltending position. And if Martin Jones can play better than he has the past couple of seasons, that will be big for San Jose as well. And the star players, I mean, Karlsson, Burns, Couture, Kane, Meyer, Hurdle, these guys had down seasons last year. All of them had tough seasons last year. Injuries did play a big role in that, but they all had tough seasons last year, and that was one of the main reasons why the Sharks were as bad as they were. So if they can get back on track, or at least a few of them can get back on track and bump those numbers back up, San Jose is going to be a better team than they were last season. So overall, I really do agree with Nick on just about everything. That I think the Sharks are going to be a lot better than they were last year. I don't think they're a last place team. There's too much talent on this Sharks team with all of those players that I just mentioned for them to be a last place team. Now, I don't think they're a playoff team either. I agree with Nick on that. I think they're going to be better than they were last year, but I don't think they're a playoff team. I think there are better teams in that division and better teams around the league that are going to take those playoff spots. But if you can get, maybe Dubnyk comes in and has an all-star level year, if you can get a really good goaltending all of a sudden, and maybe if Karlsson and Burns get back to being the players that they were a couple years ago, maybe, just maybe, this team could start pushing for a wild card spot. And maybe they could surprise me and surprise a lot of people and maybe make a run towards a wild card spot in the Western Conference. I wouldn't completely rule it out if Couture and Kane get back on track offensively. Karlsson and Burns get back to being, the level of defenseman that they were a couple years ago. And if you get one of those goaltenders, Jones or Dubnyk, to have a really good season, maybe they could push for a wild card spot. That's not completely out of the question. I certainly think they're going to be better than they were last year. They should not be a last place team. I have a lot of questions about their depth. I don't think they have really any depth offensively. And then outside of Burns, Karlsson, and Vlasic on the back end, there's not a whole lot there on defense either. So I have real questions about their depth. Again, I don't think they're a playoff team right now. But I do think, if you get a couple of really good years out of guys, maybe they could make a surprising run towards a playoff spot in a wild card position. But I think Nick covered it best, just going through that team and their lineup. And San Jose had a really tough year last year. I think they're certainly going to be better. I don't think they're a last place team, but I don't think they're a playoff team either. And I think they're going to be, maybe a few spots out of a wild card spot come the end of the season. But I think if they get a really good goaltending year, or they get, some of their star players to really get back on track, then maybe they could push for that last wild card spot. But that's it for San Jose. I really want to thank Nick again for coming on. Twisted Wrister Hockey has some incredible content on his channel, so please check it out. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon, merchandise store, and donation link are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.